Mrs. Green Apple, we are continuing our track by track listen through to the album 12 with track number 9, which is called Simple. And I appreciate the directness of that name. The song is called Simple. Now, given what I know about Omori and Mrs. Green Apple, I'm going to take a guess that it's not just going to be simple, but I'm intrigued to know whether that name actually does permeate through to anything about the songwriting. As with most of the songs on this album, it is one that doesn't have a music video, therefore no real hints to go on beyond the name. I will say that obviously we're coming off the back of a few songs that have had some really rather interesting twists and turns. So definitely I'm excited to see where this takes us next. But shall we dive straight in with this one then? Because I feel like we're making good progress on this album. Slow, but good progress. And it's given us so many different things that I almost don't want to predict with this one. I'm just kind of intrigued to know whether the name Simple is a actual hint to the fact it's a simple song, or whether it's kind of like, one of those things when you got a friend who's like really, really cool, tall, and you call them tiny. One of those names where it's like deliberately the opposite of what's actually going to appear when we press play. But let's find out. This is Simple from 12 by Mrs. Green Apple. Loving the bass at the beginning. I'm going to drop in. Oh, bit of tambourine. Really love that he's singing with a lot of like volume and power. He really likes that little rhythm change on the third beat in the pre-choruses. Again, listening to the layers as ever. That's like such a straightforward rock and roll chorus, but really satisfying. Even the riff is very, very straightforward but satisfying. It's on the verse. And he's gonna stop. Yeah! I've got so used to him now, I can tell when he's gonna do stuff like that. It's just, I love the quick syllable delivery. But the melody is just such a lovely, simple, easy to follow kind of thing. Oh, this is nice. This is lush. Love that little dirty guitar solo there. This is definitely going to be one of the most satisfying songs I've heard. Certainly on this album by this band. I kind of understand more what he means by simple now. Obviously, there's the lyrical meaning, but I do like to see it beyond that. I do like to see, because I think that it's important to say that when you write something, the lyrics and the music do have to add up. There has to be some sort of convergence between them. And I feel like from the musical standpoint, what he means by simple is, the way that the music represents simplicity is that it's a very predictable kind of chord pattern. It's very true. When you write a song, you can write a song to sound really intriguing by making the next chord not necessarily the one the brain expects. And it is true. Even if you've never written a chord or a note in your life, when you hear music, your brain kind of knows what's to expect next, even if you've never heard that song before. So songwriters can leverage that technique by having slightly different you're having unexpected chords appear and things that take you in a different direction. This is one of those songs where every chord that comes next is kind of the one that, if you've ever listened to rock and roll, pop, anything like that, it's the next chord is the one you expect. And it's very comfortable in that way. It's a very comfortable, traditionally written, flowing song. But it has, I've said this a few times about a couple of the other Mrs. Green Apple songs, but I will specify a difference in a minute. It has that accessible, free-flowing sound, but then on top of that, it has the usual Mrs. Green Apple qualities. It's beautifully layered. We have one guitar sort of strumming along while another one's doing a little bit of riff. We have kind of interesting things happening with the bass very much from the outset, where the bass is playing up in the very sort of high end, just kind of giving that boom, 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 before everything drops in. I thought that was a rather interesting thing to start a song like this. That's really cool, having the bass really high up, and even the drums there, you can hear the drums have been EQ'd, so the bottom end's out, and you just kind of got this mid-range drum sound appearing. That's really cool how they've done that, and then everything sort of comes in. But anyway, like I say, the whole song is lush with things going on. It was interesting as well that a lot of the pace in this song was projected by kind of almost sometimes, not usually in this context, but it kind of referred to it as machine gun notes, where the notes are just coming and coming and coming and coming and coming. It's usually, we talk about a machine gun rhythm, so when you're rolling on the snare really quickly. Basically a snare roll, to be honest, but a consistent one. In the case of this, though, I noticed that when you get to the chorus, there's lots of syllables happening in the voice. This is a melody where you could just sing it in a really simple way, but he's got lots of lyrics going on all the time. I find that it's quite interesting that he's chosen to do that, because the song's obviously having a lot of kinetic energy delivered through it, just by having him talking with lots of words and lots of syllables and all like this. And it was interesting that actually carried across beautifully to the guitar solo we had. We had that nice bridge where the song kind of breaks down, you get a little bit of a more spaced out feeling with some interesting effects happening, and then it comes back in with a kind of, the guitar to one side is playing a bit of a solo, but it's one of those really interesting expressive solos where it's just kind of rather than twiddling and playing lots of various notes very quickly, it's more about just kind of hammering certain notes and doing very, 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 very quick sort of movements, and almost like the guitar is kind of playing a shorthand for what the vocal is doing, which is doing something simple but doing it with a really sort of rapid fire delivery. Let's see if we can find that. Just after this bit, and then this is you see that? That was pretty simple, but it was just very, very, very fast. And I think that's what kind of makes that really feel very much in keeping with what the vocals are doing. And of course, when you have a guitar solo, in a way, it's taking over from the voice, because the voice is effectively doing the equivalent of a vocal solo most of the time in most songs for most of their runtime. So it was interesting hearing it kind of taking a similar approach to the vocals there and keeping a consistency at the center of the song. But I would say, yes, this is another one of those songs where I can understand it not being a single, just because the melody and everything is very much, it's not super distinctive. It's not one of those melodies where you listen to it and go, that's distinctive in a way that if I heard that, I would immediately know what it is. It's more just immediately approachable, accessible, and kind of just repeatable. It's the kind of chorus you could listen to over and over again. Yes, it might not necessarily stick with you when you go away and listen to a bunch of other songs. This one might come out of your head quite quickly because of the fact that it is, as I say, a fairly traditionally structured kind of chorus melody. but it's one of those ones where when you're listening to it, it just feels comfortable, fits like a glove, very repeatable, sort of song you could play over and over again. Just nice, pleasant, joyful. Also worth saying that for a song that is just kind of going for a very accessible kind of chorus, I also liked that they didn't do that they had a pretty much an 8-chord chorus. So the backing chord, there was 8 chords, whereas a lot of the time with kind of rock and roll-esque songs, the lazier tradition is just a 4-chord chorus. This had an 8-chord chorus. Very small thing to point out, especially in Japan, where Japan usually doesn't rely too heavily on 4-chord choruses, but I just wanted to... Oh, sorry about the little cut there. Yes, so while I was talking just a second ago, the video software I use, OBS, just completely crashed and everything on the screen shut down. That has never happened to me before. But I thought, well, I was nearing the conclusion anyway, so I just restarting it, coming back around to do the conclusion again. Apologies, that all got cut off, so I'm just going to try and remember roughly what I said the first time, but basically, as I was mentioning, the chorus is very accessible, and it's also very high quality. And I think the thing that ultimately, therefore, is the one takeaway I want to take from this song is that yes, I know it might not be the sort of song that is going to be a single and that is necessarily going to set you apart as being different, but it was such a satisfying listen, and there was so much quality in it. And again, for a song that might be so simple, it doesn't feel complacent. It doesn't feel like a song where there's been a lack of effort or just kind of a feeling of, hey, it's catchy, leave it at that. It really does feel like it was crafted with a lot of love and therefore is deceptively simple. Anyway, so there you go. Those are my thoughts. As always, get into the comments. Tell me what you think. The next track that we're going to be picking up on is, yes, we got a song coming up which has an intro before it. I can't remember if I mentioned that before the software went wrong, but yes, the next song we're going to listen to is Hug and the intro before it. Anyway, until I see you in the next video, for now, get in the comments and ciao ciao.